Hi everyone, hope you're all well, and in this video today we're going to talk about website analytics. So website analytics refers to the collection, measurement and analysis of data related to website usage and performance. And this includes information about website visitors, such as how long did they find how they find the website, what pages they viewed, how long they spent on the website, and whether or not they completed any kind of the desired actions like making a purchase or filling out a form. It's also analyzing and making audits on your website as well. So performing or running performance checks, SEO checks as well on your website, and analyzing that data to see how you can improve that website in terms of performance, user experience, and also SEO. So we'll look at some of these tools today. So what are website analytics? So website analytics refers to the collection, measurement, and analysis of data-related website usage and performance. And this includes information about website visitors, like how they find the website, what pages they viewed, and how long they spent on the website, whether or not they completed any of the desired actions. Some common metrics that website analytics tools can measure is traffic, so the number of visitors to the website, sources, so how the visitors find the website, page views, so the number of pages viewed on the website, the percentage of visitors who leave the website after viewing only one page, and that's known as the bounce rate, time on site, and as well as the conversion rate as well. It's also really important to use performance analyzing tools as well to see what, if any, what kind of resources on your site are affecting the load time, as a high load time means for bad user experience, and also means more people are leaving your site without the site even being fully loaded as well. Website analytics are important for several reasons. One of them is for understanding your audience. So website analytics can provide valuable insights into who is visiting your website, where they're coming from, and what they're interested in. This information can help you better understand your audience and tailor your content and marketing efforts accordingly. It's also important for measuring performance. So website analytics can help you track important metrics like traffic, bounce rate, time on site, conversion rates, and by monitoring all this, you can identify areas of your website that's performing well and areas that need improvement. You also want to be able to use the analytics to identify opportunities. So website analytics can reveal opportunities for growth and improvement. So for example, if you notice that a particular page on your website is getting a lot of traffic, you may want to consider more content on that topic to attract even more visitors. Or if some of your audit reports are showing that a certain page or a certain web file is causing too many loading issues, then you can take that then and either replace it with something else or optimize that piece of content as well. It also allows you to make data-driven decisions. So by using website analytics to inform your decisions, you can take a more data-driven approach to running your website, and this can help you make more informed decisions and ultimately achieve better results. So when it comes to auditing your website for performance, one tool that you can use is GTmetrix. GTmetrix is a really popular tool for analyzing site speed performance. To succeed online, you need to have a fast website, and you can check your site performance by using tools like GTmetrix. It works by analyzing your URL, and it'll show you various parameters that will help identify what's slowing down your site, and then you can then fix those issues. Improving your site speed will give you plenty of benefits, such as a higher position on the search engine results pages, and a better chance to make your visitors stay longer. In this video, we'll go over everything that GTmetrix has to offer and how to analyze the results in the report that they make for you as well. So with GTmetrix, the way it works is that it'll provide you with a performance score and a report that shows the current state of your website as is, and then it'll give you some suggestions on what can be improved. It's a free tool to use, but there are some limitations to it. The premium versions of GTmetrix will also is a bit more flexible, but there's still a lot that you can do with the free version, as we'll see today. Another thing worth mentioning is how GTmetrix incorporates results from Google Page Speeds Insights and YSlow to form the performance score and recommendations. That means you don't have to perform the tests on any other tools, since the results cover a wide spectrum of performance metrics and present them comprehensively. Before you run a speed performance test in GTmetrix, though, there's some factors that you need to consider. It's essential to make sure that the test results are accurate and relevant, and after all, the more accurate it is, the more precise the results will be, and you can make a better informed decision on what will actually help improving your website. The things that you need to consider are the number of tests. So it's not enough to do a one-time test, since the results might change based on the amount of traffic. Try repeating the test at different times of the day. Test locations is also important. So if you have a local audience, you might want to set the location of the test to the one that's nearest to your visitors. With GTmetrix, you can set what server to what location-based server you want to test your site in. So if your audience is based in the UK, then you can choose a UK-based server to test your site with. If your audience is in Australia, then you can pick a server based in Australia to test your site with, and that'll give you more accurate results. But if you target global audiences, then you should do the test with multiple regions around the globe and not just one. Test subjects are also really important, so testing multiple posts and pages for a better analysis. This will help find out better what part needs to be optimized. Keep in mind that the primary goal to optimize your website and your site is to improve the entire site's performance rather than just the performance score. So you have to take each suggestion on the report into account to decide what will make the largest, most positive impact. So when it comes to actually using GTmetrix, there's two ways. You can go online to gtmetrix.com and you'll see this page here. And all you need to do is essentially just enter the URL that you want to analyze and then just click test your site. So you can just paste in the URL, whatever that is, and then change your site and then test your site. As mentioned before, there's some customization options you can do, one of them being the testing location. By default, it'll test it using the Chrome browser in a server based in Canada. But what you want to do is click on change options, and then you can see all the options that you want to change. So if you wanted to change your options, you need to make sure that you have an account registered with them first. Again, setting up an account is free. All you need to do is go onto the website, click on get started for free, and type in your first name, last name, email, and a password. So now that you have your account registered, what you want to do is type in the name of the URL again, and then you want to go into analysis options, and you can see the different options that you have. So depending on what plan you're on, so obviously with the free plan, what we can do is change the test URL server. So right now we have, it's based in Canada, but we can change it to any one of these servers, and it'll give us an idea on how the performance is based on those locations. Using different kind of mobile testing as well, and what kind of connections as well. So there's a lot of sort of customizations options that you can do. The advanced options are additional features that you can do sort of on your page as well. But once you've selected your location settings, everything like that, you want to click on Analyze, and GTmetrix will then analyze your URL and test it for all the different audits that they have, and then present you with a report and a score that you can use to kind of fix your website. So after your website is done analyzing, it'll give you a performance score and a report as well. And you can see the performance scores and the total load time that it took as well. And underneath that, you can see the 6 tabs covering different sections of the report, each consisting of different suggestions to improve your site as well. So things like your summary, a page speed, what performance, structure, waterfall, things like that. All of these are being analyzed. So when it comes to the summary and the page speed, so like the performance as well, this tab provides recommendations based on Google page speed insights, such as leverage browser caching, image dimensions, enabling keep alive, and minifying HTML. And you can see the overall page speed score in the performance scores box. You can see each of them here. with the speed visualizations as well. The Y slow is similar to page speed. It also shows suggestions for improving speed, but it provides different solutions like making fewer HTTP requests, reducing DNS lookups, and using CDN. Waterfall, this tab basically tab basically shows you how long each resources took to load. Examining this tab will offer lots of insights on which resources should be optimized. For example, if a certain image is taking too long to load, then you can use an image optimizer either on a plugin or even just a website to reduce the size, replace it, and then improve the loading score. The timing and the video of everything will show you, so this tab essentially will show you and the entire video process, so you can see which elements of the page took more time to load visually. You can also download the video if you want to document the site's performance on each test. You would need to enable video and then retest as well. Then you have history, and this tab shows the history of test results, and you can see the change in page load time, size, speed, and Y slow scores. The great thing about GTmetrix is that each tab that you have has this little question mark, or they have a little button that says learn how to improve this, and those basically will give you a little bit more information into what those audits actually mean. So if we were to click on this one, for example, and click on learn how to improve this, it'll take us to another page, to GTmetrix's own documentation, that'll show you exactly what that audit is, what it's about, what triggers it, how does it affect your load time, things like that. And it's especially important for for a beginner, because it just means then anything you're having trouble with, they have their own documentation to explain quite clearly what those tests mean and how you can improve. Some of them will have the include tests as well, and you can go through their documentation and go through all of these as well, to see exactly what the issue is and what they mean and how to fix it. You can see with analysis options you have all these options here, and you can also do report filtering as well, so you can filter if you have quite a number of reports, then you can filter by certain filter options as well. So that's using GTmetrix online, using their website, and this is again free to use and you can use it at any time. The other option is downloading the GTmetrix plugin and adding it to your WordPress website, and that way you can test the site directly from your WordPress dashboard, as opposed to going on the site over and over again, and you can monitor that site quite easily as well, over and over again if you needed to, which is a good idea as well. So to add the GTmetrix plugin onto your site, what you want to do is log into the back end of your site and go onto your dashboard. Once you're on your dashboard, what you want to do is go into plugins, and then you want to click on add new. And in the search plugins, you want to click into that and to search for GTmetrix, all one word. And you're looking for the GTmetrix for WordPress plugin by GTmetrix, and you just click on install now. And then just activate it. And you can see there's a new GTmetrix tab on the dashboard as well. So to set up your GTmetrix plugin, you just need to click into it, and you can see first thing you need to do is set up the authentication. So you need to have an API key to use the plugin. You can create a free account to get the API keys, as I showed you earlier. So the free account, if your account is on the free plan, then it will come with a limited number of requests per day. However, if you are using this on one website, then you're likely to never run out of credits for that. So what you want to do is once you've created your free account, you want to go into the accounts dashboard on GTmetrix. So you're on GTmetrix now, and all you want to do is click on account. And you want to essentially go onto the API key here and just regenerate API keys, create new API keys basically. You want to just basically make an API key for each of your website basically. For each website you just get the one API key, so if you remove that, it does get deleted afterwards. So you want to copy that API key and go back to your website. And then you want to paste in the API key here, and then you want to type in the email account associated with that API key as well, and then you just want to click Save Changes to save all your changes. And you can see now you have a lot more options when you're on the settings page, and each of these options will help customize your testing and also the plugin on the dashboard. So things you can do is you can show the dashboard widgets. So if you're on the dashboard, there is a new widget for GTmetrix, sort of at the bottom. So it just means then you get an easier way to test your dashboard from the plugin. It might be a good idea to just tidy up your dashboard a little bit, but it just means as soon as you log in, you can just quickly test your front page. If you go back into settings to finish setting up, and then you can decide if you want to show GTmetrix on the toolbar, and then you can decide if you want to default your ad block status, so if you want to turn on ad block and see the difference the ad networks make on your blog. This is if you have a blog website that is going to be running a lot of blogs, you can see how that's affecting your performance. The next thing you want to test is the default location. So whenever you are testing your website, this will let you choose an overall location for your website. And again, you want to base this off where your target audience is. If they are based in London, then you want to, or if they're based in the UK, you want to pick a server that's closest to that as well. And again, if you're targeting global customers, then you would need to run a few tests on different servers every day. And then you want to set up the alerts email. So whenever a test is being run, or any kind of alerts that'll be made up from this, from the plugin, who should they be sent to? So you can decide who they should be sent to, whether it's your email or another user on your website. And then you want to set the front page of the URL. So this is just whenever you are testing the web port from the button on the dashboard. It'll use whatever URL that you set on the front page URL. And then you can sort of see what you want the widget to show. If you want to show page speed grade, why slow grade, show scores, things like that, and that'll be showing up on the and that'll show up on the dashboard. And you can also decide if you want to reset the test. So if you click on reset, it will flush all of GTmetrix records from the WordPress database. And then when you're done, you just want to click Save Changes. And that's all your changes saved. So next thing you want to do is go into tests, and this is where you can finally start testing your website. And you basically just want to type in the name of your domain, or type the title of the page, or post, and you just want to do that here. And then you want to add a label for your report. So this can be any label. Performance report 1. This is optional, so the plugin will generate its own report name afterwards if you want it. And then decide if you want to block it with Ad Plus or if you want a video associated with that. So you can have the video, but just to remind you that it will require 5 API credits. You can check how many API credits you have within a day, have every day on your account dashboard on GTmetrix. And then when you're done, you just want to click on Test URL Now. And you can see the score being generated as well. So you can retest your scores, you can see a detailed report, and you can see the sort of a brief summary of the load time, things like that, how many requests were made. And if you click on detailed report, it will bring you to a more detailed report on GTmetrix, and you can see a little bit more information on what is needed in terms of improvements and things like that. So the main difference is the same kind of information that you'll get if you were to use the WordPress, if you were to use the normal GTmetrix website. The only difference is just convenience. The installing the plugin will just mean then you can do the testing as soon as you log in, and you can do it from one dashboard instead of having to go into another website and do it there. It just means there is one more plugin added to your website though, so just to check that. The plugin itself is quite lightweight, so shouldn't affect too much of your load time, but it's just something to be aware of. If you're fine just using the normal GTmetrix website, then there's no need to kind of use the plugin. You can just always use the normal GTmetrix website. You can see in your account dashboard though, you can see how many credits that you have, and when your credits will reset. So they reset every day. And if you need more, you can always purchase them from gtmetrix.com. But again, if you're just using it to monitor the one site, then the amount of credits that they give you every day should be enough. You shouldn't really need to top up more or go to a pro plan. But you can just click on this button here to get more API credits and pick one of the plans that they have instead. Another cool thing that you can do with the plugin though is you can schedule some tests. So if you click on the schedule tab here on the left underneath the GTmetrix tab, you can essentially set up scheduled tests. You can see with the report that we currently have, so if you click into it, you can see a more detailed version of it. The next thing you want to do then is click on schedule tests. And then you can set up how often you should schedule the test. So if you want the test to be hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, again, this just depends on how many credits that you will have every single day. But you can run them daily and decide if you want to be emailed, or when you want it to be emailed. So if your page speed score is less than a certain grade, if the Y-slow score is less than a certain grade, if it's greater than something, if page size is greater than something. So essentially, if it's hit a certain benchmark for a slow performing site, you can get email notifications, and you can add multiple different ones as well. If it's more than one, if you want to be notified for all of these, then you can. And then you want to set the status, so you can, if it's active, it'll always run. If it's paused, then it'll stop running. So instead of deleting the full schedule, you can just pause it for a little bit if you wanted to, and you can also pause it due to recurring failures as well. But then once you've set that up, you just want to click on save. And you can see when you go into schedule, this is our schedule test, and we can delete the schedule. We can pause the schedule even, and edit the actual schedule as well. If you wanted to edit it, you just click on edit the server, edit the event, and then decide when you're going to be running this test as well. So those are the main differences between using the GTmetrix WordPress plugin as opposed to the URL. But again, it's the same features on both. What you're really getting out of it is convenience, just having everything on one dashboard as opposed to a separate dashboard. As mentioned before, the GTmetrix has a free version that has a lot of features that you can use every single day and get started with. But if you want, you can also go premium and get a lot more features. So if you go onto GTmetrix's pricing page, they have a plan. They have different plans for different kinds of businesses and different kinds of organizations. So obviously you have the free plan, and you get the different sort of the amount of weekly on-demand tests, daily API credits, data retention, things like that. They have the solo and starter and growth in the individual plan. So this is really for sites that you have here. And then you've got business plan. So you have plans for different kind of business types as well. Obviously the business plans are a little bit more expensive, but they come with a lot more features as well. Things like more monitored slots, a lot more daily API credits, hourly monitoring, things like that. And you can also decide on the plan terms. So if you want monthly plans or yearly plans, you'll see obviously it works out a lot cheaper if you were to go for a yearly plan. So you can save up to 15% on a yearly plan, both on the individual or the business as well. And all the pricing is in USD. You can see exactly what is included on every single plan. So it's really good if you have that as well. With their custom plans, it just it doesn't have any sort of starting prices or anything. It just means you can get in contact with them and set up a plan that will be really suited to your needs, as opposed to going for one of the plans that are already out there. This is especially useful if you have sites with very sort of complex functionality, more functionality that you needed, or if there's certain things that are offered within more expensive plans that you don't need, but there's certain things that you do need that only come with the more expensive plans, and these are just different ways to kind of get around that and add new and add different functionality to your site as well. You can see also in the pricing page they've got sort of frequently asked questions as well, but if there's more questions that you have, you can contact them and get in touch with them mainly via email. So you'll submit a form and they'll be able to get in touch with you again afterwards through email. So some of the most common issues that are seen with WordPress websites, especially for performance, are things like avoiding enormous payload networks, or properly sizing images, or using compressed images. Images take a lot more time to load than text, so if a page has a lot of images, then it slows down your website. On the other hand, images are also really important for user engagement, and you can't avoid them. So the solution is to use optimized WordPress plugins for optimizing images, and you can still use the same images but with a smaller file size. Smush is a really popular image optimization plugin. So they offer to optimize your images as soon as they're uploaded. They can bulk optimize images that are already on your website, and they can turn on lazy loading and resize, compress with lossless compression, meaning that the image won't lose quality once they're being compressed. We have seen it improve Google page speeds and GTmetrix page speeds as well. It's incredibly powerful, and it's a free WordPress image smusher as well, so it's a really good one to have. The other option, if you don't want to add more plugins onto your site, what you can do is make sure the images are optimized first before uploading them to your site. Websites like TinyPNG are really fast, really easy to use, and it uses smart lossy compression techniques to reduce the size of your files, whether they're WebP, PNG, or JPEG, and they basically will compress your images, and it just means then when you're uploading the images to your site, they're already compressed, and you don't need to worry about installing any third-party plugins to optimize them for you. Generally, it is better to optimize images first before adding them to your website, but you can also add plugins to your website to optimize them later. TinyPNG is a free version, is free to use, but you can also use applications like Photoshop that come with a feature that allows you to save images for specifically for web in web formats, so that's already compressed for you. Photoshop obviously is a paid tool, and TinyPNG is just a little bit is cheaper, but completely free to use as well. Other issues that can have a negative effect on your performance is gzip compression, and making sure gzip compression is enabled. So it's to do with your file size essentially. So file size and types of your files can affect the overall load time of a site, since the browser needs to load different file types like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. To solve that problem, you can try using gzip compression, and you can check whether your site enabled it by using the small SEOs check gzip compression tool. So it's this tool here. You just go into the website, type in the URL, and just check if it's been compressed. If your site doesn't have gzip compression enabled, you can turn it on by modifying the htaccess file. You just need to go to the public HTML directory of your site with an FTP client like FileZilla, or by using your cPanel on your hosting compression as well. It can also depend on your hosting provider. Certain hosting providers like Hostinger uses Lightspeed for hosted WordPress websites, and they have gzip enabled by default. So check with your hosting provider first, see if they can enable it for you if it's not already enabled, and if not, it may be some manual work on your part as well. You can also install a plugin like WP Fastest Cache, and the free version of that allows you to enable gzip compression in just a few clicks. Some other issues that tends to come up are things like minifying JavaScript and CSS. So minifying CSS, JavaScript, and HTML is another way to improve your loading time. It just removes unnecessary characters in each file, like white space characters or new line characters. You can try minifying web files by using tools like Minify Code. Copy the original code from GTmetrix, which can be found in the minifying suggestion. Paste the original code to the minification tool to get the optimized results. Then copy it and overwrite the original text in your site's directory. And you can do that with any kind of file manager or FTP client. You also need to make sure that you are using good hosting for your WordPress website. So if you are using a low quality WordPress hosting provider, then there's not much you can do to improve the performance of your website. Some recommendations for WordPress hosting is, for example, Bluehost. Bluehost is an officially recommended WordPress hosting provider. They have really good prices, and it comes with built-in caching as well. So you can see there's lots of things you can improve upon if you have a tool like GTmetrix to kind of point out those issues for you. GTmetrix, again, is really easy to use, very user-friendly, and there's loads of documentation out there as well to use it as well. A lot of issues that come up in GTmetrix can be easily fixed through some plugins or image optimizations, things like that. It's just important that you are constantly testing your site, checking for any new issues, checking for any last lingering issues, and making sure that they're getting sorted as soon as possible. Where possible, try and get your hosting provider to help. But other than that, everything else is a little bit more straightforward to fix anyway. So as well as performance analytics, you also want to look at SEO analytics as well. So there are loads of tools out there that'll essentially scan your site similar to how GTmetrix works, but then will also show you some issues that might be happening on your site for SEO and make suggestions for improvements to improve your site on SEO as well. One example is SEObility. It's a really good tool, especially for small businesses, bloggers, and those small kind of website owners. With SEObility, there's a lot of things that they offer in terms of your basic SEO to kind of see exactly where you can optimize your site for SEO. And it changes daily, so it keeps you updated with sort of the best practices for search engine for ranking in search engine results. The main thing you want to check with SEObility is their free SEO checker. So essentially, these are it's an online tool completely free to use, and what you can do is you can check that, perform an audit on a page on one of your websites for an SEO, and essentially it will check your site for certain things and provide you with a list or a report of the things that you're doing well for your SEO, things that you're lacking, and exactly where those issues are in terms of if you're missing heading tags, if your heading tags aren't structured properly, if there's duplicate tags, things like that. And it's really easy to use, and it's really easy to follow as well. So what you want to do is go onto SEObility SEO checker, and you'll see this page here. And what you want to do is paste in the link to the page that you want to run your audit on. And then what you want to do is click Analyze Website. And then what will happen is the SEO checker will then run an audit on your site and will give you sort of an overall score. And then it'll sort of give you some information on response time, file size, media files, number of links, things like that, and give you an overall grading on things like your meta information, your page quality, structure, external factors, things like that. All of these things make up your score, and it gives you kind of basic overview as well. Scrolling towards the bottom, so it gives you a then task list of certain SEO improvements, and it uses a traffic light system. So anything in red is would be considered very important. You should consider making those changes immediately. Anything in this orange/yellow is not as important as the red, but definitely something that you want to think about as well. And then anything with the green tick just means that you're doing things correctly and there's nothing to change here. So you'll get an overview of exactly what you need to change in this task list of SEO improvements. And it's really good. You can kind of use it as a kind of checklist to see what you can change and kind of go through everything list by task by task. And everything is laid out for you, and it's then further explained in the meta specifications part. Just one thing to remember, that this is specifically for the page that you've scanned and not your site as a whole. So if you wanted to check the SEO score of another page on your website, you would need to then paste in the link for that specific page, and then you'll get a completely different score, or you might get a completely different score, you might get a similar score, but essentially you'll have the metrics according to that page and not your site as a whole. So the first things that they go over are the titles and the meta description. So the title, your page title is essentially the title of your page, and it's essentially what Google will see, users will see on this Google search engine results pages. It's an element in the head section of an HTML document, and it defines basically the title of your page. And web browsers will use it, and search engines will use it to display a web page in search engine results. And it's a really important element for Google to judge the relevance of a website for a particular search query. So keywords which are used in the meta title are really, really high importance, because they are what help rank your web page. So the optimization of your meta titles is one of the most important SEO checks. So the meta title is considered one of the sort of low-hanging fruits in search engine optimization. So when you're optimizing your title element, you want to consider things like the length. So it even tells you sort of what the ideal title length should be, and whether you're going too long or too short. And then the other thing that you want to do is make sure that it contains the most important keywords, specifically the words that you want this specific page to rank for. It should be a meaningful sentence instead of stuffing your title full of keywords. Otherwise, it could be evaluated negatively, because search engines do pick up of that, and they call it keyword stuffing. And the most important keyword should always come first, as Google attaches a lot of importance to the first word of the title. So in total, up to 4 keywords should be used. You want to avoid anything that has any duplicate words. You don't want to have the same word sort of repeating over and over again. You want to avoid spelling errors. And you want to make sure that the title has different terms, and they should be separated by this pipe icon here, and not a sort of lateral hyphen. That's kind of just allows more prominent display of the title in the search engine results page. Your title should be brief, concise, and it should be a comprehensive sort of impression of what the page is about and why it's relevant for them. Terms that don't provide any information on the page, like welcome or home, you want to avoid that. In addition to that, your title should be appealing to users in order to increase your click-through rate, especially through like online shops. They use call to actions as well to emphasize the uniqueness of their offer, of their own product offers in comparison to competitors. If you don't have a meta title defined manually, there's a good chance that Google will automatically create a title for you, and it doesn't always lead to good results. They'll usually use the first word that they see that's in an H1 tag, maybe in an H2 tag, and can use that as a meta title. So you want to make sure that you do that yourself, basically. The next thing then is the meta description, and similar to the meta title, it's essentially another really important part to make sure that your website is ranked as high as possible. Again, it's part of the HTML code of a web page that provides a really brief description of the content of that page. So with the meta description, users won't be able to see it on your page, but they will see it on search engine results, like Google, to display it in web page results as well. So for example, when your site comes up as a result on the Google search engines, you can see that you have the title. This is the title that's showing up, and then this little description here, this is the page meta description. So this meta description isn't on the website itself, but it does show on Google. So Google will use it to see what your page is actually about and see if it's relevant to what the users are searching for. And users will use it to see what that specific page is about before actually going onto your website. So users will kind of browse through sort of a list of all the results that they have, and they're not going to click into every single one. They're going to look at the description, and they're going to look at the title and see, okay, which one is most likely to have the information that I'm looking for, and they'll judge that based on the title, and they'll judge that based on the description. So you need to make sure, so in order to kind of improve the click-through rate of your website in search engine results pages, you want to choose your meta description carefully. It has to be succinct and a really comprehensive description of the page content. Even if your keywords in your meta description don't impact your rankings and SEO, the most important ones should still be included. A meta description that includes the most important keywords can generate a high level of attention, but the keywords should be used in a meaningful sentence and not stuffed into your description sort of incoherently. You need to make sure that a meta description is set for every single one of your pages of your website, and you want to provide sort of accurate and content related descriptions as well. You can make it clear to users why your web pages are relevant to their specific problems. And similar to the page title, if you don't set your own meta description, Google will take the first few lines of your of that specific web page and use that as a description as well. So when it comes to SEObility, it's really useful. It does look at your meta description as well, and sort of checks it for things like duplicate content, and it also checks the length as well, so you know if you're gonna go over or gonna go under the limit, basically, so you can kind of have a good gauge of that as well. Other things that SEObility will pick up on is crawlability, so making sure that there's no problems in actually accessing your site, which can be a huge hindrance. If there are any problems accessing your site, you need to essentially get in contact with the hosting provider and see what the issues are. Any issues there, so SEObility will list them for you, so you're not kind of going in blind. You will be given sort of like an error message or what it is exactly that's blocking your website from being crawled. Other common issues that can happen or that can come up time and time again are things like favicon. So it does check for a favicon on your site. Favicons are basically that small symbol that kind of helps users to recognize a website, and it's usually a simplified version of a logo, and it's displayed in the title, next to the page title in the browser's tab. So for anyone who uses a lot of tabs, which is very common amongst a lot of users, if they have lots of tabs open at the same time, the small square icon can sometimes be the only sort of orientation aid to kind of switch between websites that are currently being opened. So it does check for if you have a favicon or not, and if it's linked correctly, and things like that. Next thing then, it will go over your page quality. So with page quality, it kind of just checks in terms of your actual content. Is the content written in an easy to digest way for users? Is it broken up correctly? Is there a good amount of content? Is the content readable? Things like that. You want to make sure that your site is readable for your users. It's one thing to have a site that's full of content and keywords that Google can rank, that Google can sort of scan and see, but if it's not easy to read for the user, you're not going to get you'll notice a higher kind of bounce rate. So as soon as bounce rate is essentially the percentage of people that are clicking off of your site after visiting one page, so you'll get a higher bounce rate, and you'll get sort of no kind of repeat users on your site. If they see a site that's just filled with content, written content that's not readable and not easy to kind of consume either. So that's just something to look out for, and something that SEObility will check for you. So things like the content length, so how many words that you're using, the keywords used, what kind of keywords you're using, and if they're being used in the page content, how many paragraphs are being found, any kind of placeholders and text that are being used that you weren't aware of. That's all listed there as well. And it'll also let you know if there are any duplicates on the site, meaning can they detect the rest of that content on any other parts of the site, which is a huge factor when it comes to SEO. Google will pick up on other pages that have the same content, and you'll get marked down as duplicated content, so you want to make sure you don't have that as well. High quality content is a really important factor for good ranking on search engines, and high quality means that the content is relevant for users and provides a benefit to them. This is recognized and rewarded by Google. In the early days of search engine optimization, factors like the number of keywords contained in the text still play sort of like a major role as well. When it comes to optimizing your text, you want to make sure that the texts are well structured in order to improve your readability. So dividing your text into the paragraphs and giving it different headings. So if you scroll down, you'll see a page structure section as well, and this is just making sure that there are an appropriate amount of headings to the amount of content paragraphs that you have in relation to the amount of text that you have. So they do scan for that as well. Always keep in mind that you aren't just creating content for Google, but you are creating it for your visitors as well. So your text should be really understandable, legible, and well written. You can also make text clearer and more user-friendly through tables, bullet points, a table of contents. If it's a blog page and if it's a particularly long blog, adding a table of contents will really help users to kind of scan through your content or go back to different parts of your blog as well. It's also really important that you use images and videos also to break up your content. So you can use headings, but adding things like videos and images can sort of give your user sort of like a break from actively reading on your site and just focus on something else. Videos and images are a really good way to kind of keep users on your site for longer. And Google track that. They track how long someone is spending on your site, how long a session is essentially. And the longer that is, the better. So you want to make sure that the page is engaging in that way as well. You also want to avoid text that's too short or don't offer enough value. How long a text on a page should be in order to give readers all the necessary information just depends on the topic. And it's not something that you can sort of put a figure on. But long texts constructed for SEO without useful content don't offer much added value to users. So you're not going to get a lot of results for online marketing in that way either. Again, similar to meta descriptions and titles, you want to always ensure you have the correct spelling, punctuation. This is not only well received by users, but search engines also rank that a little bit higher as well. If a visitor leaves a page quickly due to too many spelling mistakes, this leads to a high bounce rate, and a high bounce rate will then worsen your ranking on Google. So other things that will come up are image SEO. So your images themselves have capacity to be optimized for SEO, and it's through things like alternative text. Alternative text is basically text that you can text tags that you can add onto your image, and it's used to kind of describe the image as well. So it's used for different things. For a really important aspect is that it can improve user experience. If a user is coming onto your site and for some reason the image isn't loading, instead of showing a broken image, it will show the alternative text, and the alternative text, if you've written it correctly, will show the user a description of what that image was meant to be. So it's still kind of displaying a written version sort of the image. It's also good for screen readers. If someone is visually impaired and they are using a screen reader to essentially visit your website, the screen reader will then use the alternative text to read out what the image is meant to look like essentially. So it's really good for user experience point of view, but it's also really good for SEO as well, because it's easier for Google to understand essentially the context of the image, as Google can't essentially see images. They will use the alt tags to understand what the image is about. So using things like keywords as well within your image alt text is also really good as well. File name of images is also a really important factor of ranking images in an image search. It should contain all the essential keywords, and it should match the actual content of an image, which should be reflected as exactly as possible by the file name. So as long as you have the technical characteristics of the picture in terms of your SEO, you also need to make sure that the content for the image is there, and that you are describing the image exactly how it is, and then try and add as much keywords in that as possible. Some improvements that also come up are social networks. So it will tell you if there's enough social sharing widgets on your page, and if it's not, they will flag that. Whether you have enough or whether you don't have any at all, you want to make sure that you have the appropriate amount of social networks as well on your site. Finally, then it'll also go into your page structure, and this is going over things like your headings, heading structure, your link structure as well. Headings are a really important element of any website, as they structure content and text in a really meaningful way, and give it a sort of hierarchy as well. So it increases the readability of content for visitors on a site. So when users visit a web page, they often scan the text on this page using headings to get an idea of the content and the relevance of that page. That works similarly with search engines. The headings of a page help Google get an overview of the page content and subtopics. That way you can see headings contribute directly to search engines better understanding your web page. When it comes to heading, the main one you want to think about is the H1 heading. So the H1 heading is the most important heading on a web page. It should summarize the entire content of a page and contain the most important SEO keywords. And it has to also then interest the user as well in the context of a website. Another thing to mention is that the heading 1 should only be used once on every single page. So therefore it's like the main heading of the page as well. It's also really important to note that every single web page on your website should have one and only one. So you should only really use multiple. You can use multiple sort of H2s, H3s on your site, but you want to make sure you only have the one H1 tag. Your H1 should also be neither too long or too short, and you can use a maximum length, I think, of about 80 characters. That's a very rough guideline to make sure that a heading describes the content of the following paragraph in a concise but also a really informative way. So SEObility SEO tool is really good in that it does scan your heading 1. It scans for that whether or not you actually have it and whether or not you have it once or twice, but also the actual content of it scans that as well. A lot of mistakes that people tend to make is that they include sort of very general wording like welcome or their company name or things like that. But you want to actually use a keyword that you want to rank for and make it a bit more, make it stand out a bit more in that way. It should match the text of your page. And it should, again, just be able to describe the page sort of succinctly as well. As well as heading 1, it also ranks your actual heading structure, so your H1 to H6 basically. So it sorts out basically how many headings that you have and whether or not it's enough headings for the amount of content that you have on your page. If you scroll down, you can see exactly, they've listed out all of the heading structures as well, so you can see exactly where the headings are coming from. So if you ever needed to change one, you can sort of look at this heading structure and see which one needs to be changed. If you had any duplicate headings, it will also come up here as well. You want to use heading tags in a way that they structure your text logically and summarize the central theme of your web page. In addition, heading tags should have a higher information content so that your users know exactly what your page is about without having to read every single paragraph completely. Basically, you can imagine your own website as like a Word document, and the content on your document is being separated into the different headings. And you want to kind of stick to the correct hierarchy descending order of HTML tags. So first come your H1 tags, then you have your H2, and after H2 should be H3, and you shouldn't really skip the hierarchy as well. It's not a big issue if you do, as it can be a bit difficult to kind of keep your structure correct, but it is something that when you get right, Google do rank you a little bit higher for it. It shows a lot more that your content is organized and is structured in a more meaningful way. Other things that it does, the SEObility will kind of scan for as well, although not as in-depth as some actual performance tools, is that it will check your server speed and also rank your performance as well. Again, it won't give you as in-depth information as a performance tool like GTmetrix will do, but it does give you some overall guidelines on performance. So with the performance, it does sort of take in your any performance load times and any hindrance to performance, but again, it won't be as in depth as as an actual performance audit tool like GTmetrix will give you. So GTmetrix will give you a very more in-depth list of how your site is doing in terms of performance, and it will give you a list of what's actually hindering your performance, and gives you ways to fix that. Whereas with SEObility, it kind of gives you sort of a basic overview of how your site response time is, and any kind of CSS files or JavaScript files that are kind of causing more issues to your load time, but is a good sort of tool to have anyway. One thing about SEObility is that you can use GTmetrix with it in conjunction, so you can use one for SEO, and obviously you'll use the GTmetrix for performance, but you do get that as well. So overall, SEObility is a really good kind of tool to give you even just the most basic information on how your site is doing in terms of SEO. Again, it's done by a page-by-page basis, so you would need to check sort of each page individually to see exactly what the SEO issues are for each of your pages. With SEObility, so if you are not logged in, you only have the 3 checks each day, so you can only run the test on each of your pages 3 times, and this is for any number of pages. So essentially, if you were to test the same page twice, that will still count as 2 checks. But you can always sign up for free and get a few more checks daily as well. So that's another thing to kind of look out for. Overall, website analytics are an essential tool for understanding your audience, measuring performance, identifying opportunities, and making data-driven decisions.